Now, is that better? Okay, wonderful. If you don't mind, could you go ahead and get to the next one? And then the next one. Okay. Mohandas Gandhi and Paramahansa Yogananda. Paramahansa Yogananda is the guru to the West. That's what he's been known by. He created Self-Realization Fellowship over here in the United States in 1920. He is revered in India. They've even had stamps made after him there. I have frequently been asked, well, he started a cult, didn't he? No, I don't think so. He started a science to be able to know God through yogic meditation. It is one thing to believe in God. It is one thing to believe that there is a power greater than us that is in control of this planet, this universe, that is everywhere, that is omniscient. But when we meditate upon that truth, which is the capital T of truth, then we begin to feel it. We begin to know it in words that English does not have, because English is a technical language. It is an experience. And when we meditate upon that which we call truth with a capital T, it becomes permanent in us, and we begin to treat others in that truth. We begin to practice ahimsa, nonviolence, and we begin to practice that nonviolence with satyagraha, which again in Hindi means the holding of truth. As we look back upon the revolution that Mohandas Gandhi started many, many, many years ago in the 20th century, not a single bullet was fired by the people who supported him. It was a peaceful revolution, and soon India belonged to the Indians. Martin Luther King, and this is the month of Martin Luther King, MLK, adopted his doctrine of non-violence and turned the other cheek. Peacefully, change was made in this country, although physically painful and emotionally painful for those who were the instigators of this peace and voting rights for African Americans and equality for the children of God, all children of God. It happened. Nelson Mandela in South Africa also adopted the peacemaking tactics of the internalized God within to help free South Africa and create its own country too. We have another peaceful revolution that's going on, and I know in my heart that everybody is going to realize with deep, deep conviction that we are all brothers and all sisters in one. Like the rays of the sun, there is only one sun, and there are many parts to that sun. God is incomplete without us. Mohandas Gandhi and Paramahansa Yogananda were friends, very good friends. Paramahansa Yogananda initiated Mohandas Gandhi in the style of yoga that he taught, that Paramahansa Yogananda taught, which is called Kriya Yoga. For Mohandas Gandhi's life, he meditated deeply on a form of meditation known as passage meditation. Passage meditation is an act of finding a scripture or a prayer, something of great, deep, capital T, truth of God within us. And he meditated upon prayers that he chose from the Bhagavad Gita for over 50 years. And he says it transformed him from being a shy little man to the great leader, the great spiritual leader of a country, where he saw God in all and all in God. Mohandas Gandhi said, there's no higher truth than God, and no God higher than truth. And that truth is love. Love for all, even scorpions that bite. I know I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. If we could go to the next slide. Anybody ever heard of Mac McAnally? Yeah, a Mississippi balladeer. Long time ago, when I was young, one of my favorite songs he wrote and performed, and it was about Mississippi. And oh, he sings about Mississippi. Now, he grew up Baptist, and he's got songs about the Lord and the devil. Anybody ever heard the Lord and the devil fight left and right? Anybody know that one? Okay, some of you do. I won't sing it for you, but I'll say it. The Lord and the devil fight left and right. Fight left and right. The devil, he wins on Saturday nights. Saturday nights. Things you swore you'd never do. You like my Mississippi R? Saturday you might. The Lord and the devil fight left and right. Fight left and right. Now, if I were a possum, I'd tried as hard as I could to get across the road, because a run-over possum ain't doing nobody no good. Now, what that has to do with that song, I don't know, but it is funny. What is the Lord and the devil? Now, many of us have been frightened by the word devil since we were small children, because the devil was going to get you if you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Interchangeably, we call the devil Satan, Lucifer, many, many, many other names. But you know what all that really is? It's the ego. It's the ego. It's Maya, as they say in Hinduism and Buddhism. It is the illusion. It is when we have moved away from who we really are, and we are pieces of God, of that Son. And we begin to worship instead false icons, arrogance, selfishness, me, me, me. We stop putting other people first. And we turn to isms, drugs, alcohol, overeating, gaming, social media, to the extent that we have forgotten God who lives within us. Now, does everybody get to that extent? No. But that's at the far reaches of the ego. And the idea of God and good is to bring us back to that highest truth. All is in God. God is in all. We are one, and we all get there together. Many of you as children learned about truth with the little t, as in don't lie. And we were taught that that is what the Bible and all the sacred text on this planet meant when it talked about truth. Just don't lie. Well, that certainly is where we should start. We should have the courage to speak the truth, unless we're protecting somebody else who needs to be protecting. Anybody ever hear the story of George Washington cutting down the cherry tree? Anybody raised with that? Boy, I certainly was. George Washington cut down the cherry tree, according to legend. And his father said to him, "Son, did you cut down that cherry tree?" And George Washington said, "Yes, Father, it was I. I cut down that cherry tree." He told the truth. Little did my father know that he would tell me that story about how I needed to start telling the truth. And I took it literally. I went out in the backyard and I started cutting down the water oak with a hatchet. My father was sitting in the house watching the TV on antenna, and he kept hearing something. He didn't know what it was. Hack, hack, hack. And all of a sudden, kids from the neighborhood were knocking on the door going, Mr. Powell, Beth is out there cutting down a tree. My father came out, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, Father, it is I. I am cutting down the water oak. Well, I destroyed the tree. Did I actually cut it down? No, I was only 7 years old with a hatchet. But my father had to go and get the axe and finish the job so that the tree did not fall on the fence or somebody's house in a hurricane. I wanted to show him, I guess. I was always very highly kinesthetic, that I really understood what he was talking about. Truth is higher than just tell the truth. When Pilate, at Christ's trial, said to Jesus, the Christ, is your truth the same as mine? Because we both have truth. Pilate was speaking on the level of the water oak in the backyard where I grew up. The level of the cherry tree. Very physical, very basic, very concrete. Truth with a little t. When he asked Jesus, are you the King of the Jews? Jesus said, yes, I am a king. Of course, in the musical Jesus Christ Superstar, it sounded more like, it's you that say I am. Do you remember that? We both have truth. But he was speaking on a level of much, much higher truth, and that he came to spread God at a time when people had forgotten who God was, what God did. They forgot their connection in and around them to him. And Pilate was trying to figure out if Jesus was starting a physical revolution and going to kick the Romans out. And for that he was crucified, because the others unfortunately saw it that way too. We are reviving truth with a T. It is happening. We see it. We know it. We feel it. Next slide, if you don't mind. So much of our suffering is brought on to ourselves by us, not by somebody else. The thoughts that we have, the belief that there is value in our own suffering. For so many of us, the guilt that we have because we haven't forgiven ourselves. Some of us manifest physical illness as a result of that guilt. Or we do things out in the world that make us feel even guiltier. We self-punish. Paramahansa Yogananda said, it is all an illusion. We're just all watching a motion picture. We can change the channel, even when it feels so real. My father used to always say, besides, don't you ever cut down another tree. He would say, we dig our own graves, and then we lie in it. It is so much easier to forgive somebody else when we have forgiven ourselves for getting into that position to begin with. Maya is the veil that prevents us from seeing God in all and all in one. Believe me, I'm not perfect at it. And sometimes I'm going to make a confession because I'm going to speak truth with a small t right now. Many times I can be so angry with somebody for what they have done to hurt their brother or their sister that I happen to pray Old Testament over them, not New Testament. May that person reap what he sows. And then I do try to remember to pray, Lord, help me think like Jesus. Help me think like Mohandas Gandhi. Help me see the soul and not the ego of that person. When England left India back in, I guess it was 1948, then the Muslims and the Hindus began to try to annihilate each other. We saw religious violence. Gandhi loved all his children, adult and child, strangers, but they were his children. He was Bapu. They would call him father. And he went on a hunger strike as an old man, I guess in his early 80s. And he said that he was not going to eat until the Hindus and the Muslims stopped fighting. Such violence took place. Once when he was lying on his bed, so weak, the Hindus and the Muslims started coming in and throwing down their arms, their weapons in front of him. And then one Hindu man came in and he threw his weapon down and he said, "Eat, Bapu, eat, for I will die and I will go to hell," he told Bapu. And Gandhi looked at him with such empathy and he says, "Oh my Lord, what did you do?" And he said, "I have brutally killed a Muslim child." There is no hope for me. He was racked with guilt. And Gandhi said to him, "I know a way out of hell." He said, "You will go and you will take into your home and you will adopt a Muslim child whose parents were killed in this violence. You will love him as your own and you will raise him as a Muslim." And so he did. This was the greatness of Gandhi. This was the ahimsa, the satyagraha. He only saw that man's soul. And when we can truly forgive somebody, we can do so because we see their soul, which is the God self, that which comes from heaven to earth to live in the human body and goes back to heaven once we leave this body. It is the only thing that is real, the soul. Everything else is the ego or maya, the illusion. When we truly love unconditionally, we are loving the soul. So think about that. If there's somebody who you are having trouble forgiving, try to imagine what their soul was like when they were just a very, very, very small child, before they were harmed by the harshness of this world, this planet. See them as the self that will go back to heaven and take that child's hand and walk with them. Can we go on to another slide? Maya, the ego, the maladaptive coping system that's all of us utilize to one degree or another. I didn't do that. You did that. Or the reason I did that is because you did that, and I'm going to get you back. So therefore, I'm innocent, but you are guilty. None of us want to feel guilty. Let's see if we can blame somebody else. That's a maladaptive coping system, maladaptive technique. We all use it to some degree. And then sometimes it might save us from mental breakdown to believe somebody else done it and not us. But when we develop the courage to admit our faults, our faux pas, then we can inspire others to do the same. Because it is the severe conflict avoidance, inner conflict avoidance, and the severe maladaptive coping mechanisms that cause us to go into the utilization and for some, the intense worship of what the commandments call the false icons. That of the ego and not of God, which pushes us further away from the truth with the big T that is within us all. It leads to depression, it leads to anxiety, and it leads to the dehumanization of others. Would you mind going to the next one? Sorry, I've never been good at multitasking. There's no way I could have done the PowerPoint and stood up here and talked. The illusion moves us away from the self. The self is the soul, the true self, the God realized, God remembered soul. I can remember being younger and being told I had to love myself. You've got to love yourself. Well, at that time, I didn't realize what self was. I thought people were telling me to love my ego. And I also thought it was selfish. Love me? Love me? Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? I am. But then I realized through deep meditation upon therapeutic spiritual passages that what I was being asked to love, not by people, but by God, was Christ who lives within me. I am just his motor vehicle. And this vehicle ages, this vehicle gets sick, and this vehicle eventually leaves the body. But the soul goes on to live again forever. There is no death, not for the soul. Can we move on to the next one? Do you mind? So it's not about believing that God exists, and it's not intellectually saying, I believe in God, I know that everything is going to be okay. Someone has died, they're in a better place. I've heard so many times. But yet we as human not only have a right to save, but we also have a right to grieve and miss that person as well. It's not selfish. It's human. By meditating on the truth with a capital T, we awaken the truth with a capital T within us, and we spread it outward to the planet. What we meditate on, we become. It becomes like a form of self-hypnosis. So if we meditate on violent movies, violent songs, if we meditate upon the news to the degree that we go into worry, fear, dread, anger, sadness, depression, anxiety, then we are moving into the veil of Maya, the illusion. And when I say none of this is real, people who are just focusing on the small t in truth are not able to see that we can get up and change that channel. Not because we tell ourselves, but because we come to our real selves. Can you go to the next one if you don't mind? Oh, that's not mine. Okay, I'm done with my PowerPoint. Give me your money. I'm going to end with a passage meditation, such as what Mohandas Gandhi meditated on for over 50 years. In fact, Mohandas Gandhi, because they wanted to call him the Mahatma, oh, great spirit, is that translation. He said, if I die from this physical body with God on my lips, then you may call me the Mahatma. Well, he was assassinated, not by a Hindu, not by a Muslim, a Sikh assassinated him. India was the land, and still is, of many different religions. And before he hit the ground, 3 times he said, Rama, 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 which is Hindi for God. And he died with God on his lips. I've always been a little concerned I might die with a 4-letter word on my lips that doesn't have anything to do with God. Maybe I should practice now. Okay, the meditation that I am going to say with you, I just want you to take it in. I want you to adjust your breath to my words. If you feel like moving a little bit, go ahead. There is a copy of it in the back. So I don't know how many copies I have, but if you are interested, please take it with you. I have meditated on this for 30 years. I'm getting there. And maybe by the time I leave this planet from this body, I will have God on my lips. Heavenly Father, thy cosmic life and I are one. Thou art the ocean. I am the wave. We are one. I demand my divine birthright, intuitively realizing that all wisdom and power already exist in my soul. God is just behind my reason, today and every day, and is guiding me to do the right thing always. God is the indwelling self of man and the soul life of the whole universe. I am submerged in eternal light. It permeates every particle of my being. I am living in that light. The divine spirit fills me within and without. God is within and around me, protecting me. So I will banish the fear that shuts out his guiding light. Perfect peace and poise are mine today as I concentrate all my power and ability upon expressing the divine will. Amen. Om. Peace. Oneness. Thank you all so much for listening to me today.